Hi, my name's Kirstie Page, and in this video I'd like to talk to you about play and the valuable role it plays for us to identify issues, but most importantly to embed interventions for children, particularly children with language skill gaps. As an ex-speech and language therapist, I used to love working within settings and schools where I could observe children in their learning environment rather than at the clinic, because then I could actually watch them. I could see where they went, where they didn't go, and what they did when they went to different areas of a provision. And that gave me a really valuable insight into their internal language processing. Because what we find is that children with delayed language, particularly language delays affecting the understanding and the internal vocabulary aspects of language, are often delayed to demonstrate language-based play too, because they're so correlated and linked. And we also find that children with communication disorder and language disorder can find language-based play specifically difficult, and so that's why it's a really useful thing to observe and consider. So if you've got children who only access certain areas and don't seem to play in a language-based way, for me the first thing we should be doing is saying why are they not going into that area. And very rarely is it just an issue of, well, they don't like the home corner, or oh, they don't like the Play-Doh, they prefer to play with the trains. Usually it's more complex than that, and it can be a window into the skill gap. Yes, the child does like to play with the trains because they know what to do and they feel safe, but they don't like to play in the home corner, most importantly because they don't know how to play in that way and they don't know what to do in that area. So anyway, let's think more about embedding interventions. For those of you who have Launchpad, we unpick play in this symbolic skill strand here. And symbolic sits there because actually it's interlinked between the language-based aspects of Launchpad and also the visual aspects of Launchpad. In that, if I go into the home corner and I see a pretend apple, then my visual skills have to recognize that and discriminate that, and my visual memory has to recognize the appleness of apple, but also that I realize that that's not a real apple that I'm going to eat. It's a symbol of an apple, and that's involving my symbolic skills. And my very same symbolic skills will help me know that the word that goes together with that will be the vocabulary of the noun apple. And in the semantic links vocabulary skills video in this very same newsletter, we'll talk about how children develop more than just knowing that an apple is called an apple. But anyway, back to play. I think that we need to realise that play is one of our biggest intervention tools, particularly for children who are not playing in an age appropriate way and have those language based skill gaps. I think first and foremost, what it means is that if we move this skill strand on, what we're actually doing is we're opening up children to the play-based learning opportunities that we have, but which they are restricted from if they're only playing in very certain ways. But also we're opening them up to a wider range of interactions and a wider range of language if they begin to access more and different areas. So this is very much about very gentle intervention and still being very child-based, but also realizing that actually to move that child on is an intervention. It's not about me taking over, but if I just leave the child to only play with one or two things every day, all day, then from a learning point of view and from a skill gap filling point of view, I am doing that child a disservice. So what we need to think about is how they play already. And obviously if we have Launchpad, we can unpick that. But really the main things I'm looking for and wanting to work on is language-based play. And we've got two sides of that same coin, if we're going to be quite simplistic. We've got pretend play, where in my learning environment, I might put out resources like toy food or animals or vehicles, and they create a visual stimulus, a visual symbol of things in the real world. The children recognize them using their visual skills and then use their language-based symbolic play mechanisms and skills to act out eating the apple, or act out making the animals walk, or act out driving the cars along a road or into the garage, etc. And then the other side of that same coin is creative skills, where I put out resources such as paint, mark making materials, Play-Doh, obviously there's many more, and the child actually generates their own language-based ideas and then attempts to create their own symbols with those materials. So to paint a picture or to make something out of Play-Doh. And of course, to begin with, children will just explore those materials. But when we see the language-based creative process click in, we see that language and creativity are very much linked. Now, my easy win recommendation is that we see play as a vehicle for intervention, but where children do have restricted play due to their language skill gaps, we slowly coach them how to pretend, how to realise what these objects are, but how to begin to use them just in a really simple way before obviously we expect them to display sequences of play or more complex role play. That will come later, that's higher up the skills strand. But also that we coach them and nurture them how to explore creative materials, and add language around that and model how we can create something very simple, or that we can, with the Play-Doh, or we can draw something very simplistically, because at the minute the child might not actually realise that there is a connection between the ideas that you have and the marks that you make or the shapes that you can make with the Play-Doh. And my advice is that we see that as intervention, but that we take it slowly and we concentrate on one area at a time. And when we feel that the child has built their skills, we maybe let them access that area a little bit more independently, and then shift our intervention focus to a similar but different area. And for me, that is more valuable for supporting that child than taking them out of the environment to do something more isolated. My other easy wins for children who are maybe a little bit further on with the play and the creative process would be just generally to prioritise using scissors. So of course we know the fundamental importance of mark making, and I don't think you need any encouragement there, but that actually to snip with scissors and to cut with scissors and to learn to cut along a line or to cut out a shape, and to have scissors very much as part of that creative process is really, really important for fine motor skills. And my other easy win is just to prioritise drawing. I think all too often we see mark making as just a way into writing, but that actually the skill of drawing, to generate an idea and to make marks on a paper to represent something, sitting alongside a child and modelling drawing for them and showing them how we draw can be really supportive, not just for further building fine motor skills and skills that will feed into mark making and writing more generally, but I'm talking about the language aspect of drawing, the vocabulary that is added, the nouns of the things that you're drawing, the verbs, the concepts around what you're drawing. And when a child begins to generate ideas and to draw independently, and first of all that might just be one person or one object, but then it will become a schematic drawing where there may be multiple objects or characters that interplay together in the drawing, or background scenery that has something to do with the idea. This is very much the same language-based process that we will want and expect children to use later on as they begin to write their own stories. So I think to have drawing available but not to truly value it as part of our long-term systematic learning and literacy approach is false economy, because it's not just about getting to them to the point where they can do letter formation or to write their name. It's about, yes, they have to get the fine motor skills ready for that writing, but we have to have that language based process ready and waiting in the background when children can begin to write more. Well, thank you for your time. There are some more practical ideas for newsletter 3, but also in the other newsletters. But these are all available together on YouTube for you to use in your own time, for you to maybe use with your team as part of CPD. Now, to make it easier for yourself, and if you want to kind of have access to new things that come up outside of the newsletter, then do subscribe to the YouTube channel, and that will make sure that as new things pop in, you get alerted. Okay, thanks again.